The morning light off the financial district's glass towers was a sharp, reflected glare. Daniel Mercer stood in the marble and steel lobby of the Ascension Tower, the air cool and filtered, smelling of lemon polish and quiet money. Executives moved in a smooth, tailored flow toward private elevators. Security desks, manned by men with earpieces and immaculate suits, scanned badges with a soft click. The atmosphere was one of controlled, frictionless power, a daytime system, precise and impersonal. Daniel wore clean, dark work trousers, a grey polo with a small embroidered HVAC contractor logo, and carried a hard-shell equipment case. He signed in at the contractor services kiosk, his fingerprints and retinal scan already in the system. A badge printed out, Mercer, Vent Tech, Tier 3, Access, no escort required. He was cleared, a known variable in the building's maintenance ecosystem, part of the invisible workforce that kept the machine humming. He took the service elevator to the 42nd floor, the building operations level. The hum of the elevator was a low, familiar drone. The ops manager, a harried woman named Lynn, met him at a bank of monitoring screens that glowed with schematics and energy graphs. "Pressure imbalance in the executive gym wing, you said?" she asked, not looking up from a tablet. "And a persistent temperature irregularity in duct zone B," Daniel replied, his voice measured. "Your energy log shows a low-level draw after hours in that sector. Less than 50 watts. Not enough to trigger a building alarm, but it's consistent. Every night, between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. Lynn frowned, finally looking at him. "That's phantom load territory. Could be a faulty sensor." "Could be. But the airflow readings from the last calibration don't match the schematic. There's a restriction. I need to inspect the duct." She waved a hand. "Fine. Calibrate. Don't interrupt anyone. The gym is supposed to be empty until 10. The partners have a training session then." "Understood." Daniel pulled up the building schematics on his own tablet as the elevator rose to the 44th floor. The executive gym occupied the northeast corner, a premium space with floor-to-ceiling windows. Its ventilation was a legacy system, oddly isolated from the main HVAC trunk, a retrofit from 2018. A footnote on the blueprint read, "Privacy isolation per client request, acoustic and air quality separation." Adjacent to it, separated by a reinforced concrete firewall, was a secure telecom hub for the private equity firm on 45. Teehee isolation made technical sense for noise, but it created a blind spot in the building's environmental monitoring. A pocket. The elevator doors opened onto a carpeted anteroom. The executive gym was through a set of frosted glass doors. It was a study in muted luxury, slate floors, mirrored walls, precision machines of brushed steel and black leather. Soft, ambient music played from hidden speakers. The air was still, cool, and smelled faintly of ozone and clean sweat. It was empty. He pushed through a heavy oak door into the locker room. The atmosphere shifted. It was warmer, humid from recent showers. Rows of rich walnut lockers with brass fittings lined the walls. The air held a layered scent, sandalwood soap, steam, the tang of antiseptic cleaner. A large rectangular HVAC vent was set into the ceiling above the last locker in the far corner row. Daniel set his case on a teak bench, unclipped a handheld digital airflow meter, and pointed it at the vent grill. The digital display flickered, then settled. The reading was wrong. Air temperature should have been within half a degree of the ambient 68. It read 71.2. The airflow velocity was sluggish, the pressure differential off by 15%. He checked the schematic again. This vent was the primary return for the room, feeding into a dedicated shaft that went straight to a rooftop exchanger. No cross-connections, no external thermal load should be possible. He took a small screwdriver from his kit, stepped onto a maintenance stool, and unfastened the 4 screws, holding the aluminum grill. It came away in his hands. Behind it, set into the sheet metal of the ductwork, was a black rectangular box, about the size of a hardcover book. It was warm to the touch. A nest of fine-gauge wires, neatly loomed, connected it to the building's 24-volt power conduit. A micro-antenna, no thicker than a pencil lead, was duct-taped to direct its signal up into the shaft. A bank of 4 SIM cards glinted in a slot on its side. A single green LED pulsed softly, rhythmically, like a slow mechanical heartbeat. Daniel did not move for a full 10 seconds. His mind catalogued the object, dismissing possibilities with cold efficiency. This installation didn't match standard building systems. The equipment was concealed, powered, and live, with no vendor markings or compliance tags. It functioned as a covert relay, a live data node. He took out his phone and took 3 photographs, a wide shot for context, a close-up of the unit, a detailed macro of the SIM array. He cross-referenced the schematic on his tablet. This duct had no data lines, no logical reason for any hardware. Someone had built a shadow pathway, tapping building power, using the HVAC system as both a physical hide and a thermal sink. A locker door clanged shut in the next row, the sound echoing in the tiled space. Footsteps, bare feet on stone. Low, murmured conversation filtered from the gym outside the main door. His phone buzzed. A calendar alert slid onto the screen. Executive suite training session, moved up 30 minutes. Gym access now. He was inside a restricted privacy zone. He was holding illegal surveillance equipment. His badge had logged his entry at 8:47 a.m. He had no cover story that would explain the photos on his phone if he was searched. He moved with controlled speed. He reattached the vent grille loosely, leaving the hub concealed but powered. He packed his meter, stepped off the stool, and picked up his case, the latch clicking shut with definitive finality. A man in charcoal grey workout gear appeared at the end of the locker row, toweling his hair. He was in his 50s, fit, with the calm authority of wealth. He stopped, seeing Daniel. His eyes flicked from the tool case to Daniel's badge, then back to his face. "Maintenance," Daniel said, his voice flat, offering no further detail. The man gave a slow, non-committal nod, his gaze lingering on the tool case for a moment too long before he turned to his locker, his movements unhurried. Daniel walked out, his badge unlocking the door with a soft, electronic beep. The sound felt dangerously loud in the quiet corridor. In the sterile, white service corridor, he leaned against the cool wall, his case at his feet. His heart was a steady, heavy drum against his ribs. He took a slow breath. He checked his phone. The battery icon showed 92%. As he watched, the number blinked and dropped to 84% in the span of a breath. A Bluetooth pairing request appeared on his screen, unbidden. Device, relay_node_07. Pair to transfer diagnostics. The name was clinical, operational. He thumbed, decline. The request vanished. The battery drained another percent, then stabilized at 83%. The hub was live and harvesting, actively scanning for nearby devices, drawing power to interrogate them. The behavior indicated an ongoing, automated operation, a data siphon embedded in the building's ventilation, feeding on the digital exhaust of the powerful. He turned and looked back down the long corridor toward the polished oak gym door. The morning sun streamed through a distant window at the hall's end, cutting the space into severe planes of light and shadow. The maintenance issue was gone. He was no longer a technician calibrating airflow. He was now inside a hostile system. The old postal annex was a cathedral of dust and stalled time. Daniel leaned against the cold steel of a storage unit door, his breath fogging in the chill air. The adrenaline was draining away, leaving behind a precise inventory of damage, a burning scrape on his shoulder, knuckles swollen and split, a deep, insistent throb in his right knee. He was a technician with broken tools. He took stock of what remained. His phone was a brick. His badge was compromised. But in his pocket, his work tablet, a rugged unit used for blueprints and diagnostics, still had charge. He powered it on, its glow harsh in the dimness. The photos were still there. Node 07's serial, the SIM array, the Ethernet line snaking into the wall. He opened a network diagnostic app. From this distance, he couldn't ping the device directly, but the building's public Wi-Fi was still in range. He saw its signal. More tellingly, he saw the random MAC address he'd noted earlier, still cycling through fake IDs every 2 seconds on the Bluetooth spectrum. Node 07 was live. The window was still open. Outside, the sound of sirens had coalesced into a constant, middle-distance wail. A police scanner app on his tablet, set to the financial district band, crackled with disjointed calls. Reports of a disturbance, Ascension Tower parking garage, possible assault. No description of him yet, just noise. He ran the outcomes, cold and logical. Reporting this now painted him as the suspect, a contractor caught where he shouldn't be, fighting security. They'd bury him in NDAs and legal holds. Running meant abandoning his life, his business, becoming a permanent fugitive. Destroying Node 07 would trigger an immediate silent alarm in the tech cell. They'd know exactly what happened and where. He needed a redirect, not to the police, but to an entity with the motive, shield, and leverage to turn a hidden node into a public problem. The recipient needed a pre-existing war with the powers Node 07 served. His mind sorted through the city's institutional conflicts. The answer was a function, not a person. The Metro Financial Review, a small, aggressive watchdog paper known for tearing into city contracts and regulatory corruption. Their office was 6 blocks away. They had a night drop slot for anonymous tips. First, decontamination. He factory reset his tablet, wiping it clean. He removed its SIM card and snapped it in half. The photos were already backed up to a cheap, anonymous cloud storage account he used for large blueprint files. He accessed it from the tablet one last time, downloaded the key images and a 1-page technical memo he composed in stark, factual language. Device: unauthorized surveillance relay. Location: Ascension Tower, 44th floor executive gym. Power source: building HVAC conduit. Probable function: data interception, credential harvesting. Serial: N7-2 3-881. He logged out and cleared the browser history. In a grimy restroom at a nearby bus terminal, he cleaned the blood from his jacket with paper towels and cold water. He swapped his torn polo for a plain grey sweatshirt from his van's emergency kit, left behind in his flight. He disposed of the polo in a dumpster 2 blocks away. His tool case was gone, lost in the garage. At a 24-hour copy shop, he used cash to print 3 copies of the memo and the clearest photos. He bought a cheap USB drive and loaded the files onto it. For a breadcrumb, he used a Metro Transit contractor pin from his van's visor, a meaningless token that would point a vague finger towards city infrastructure if found. The drop site was a narrow brick building on a side street. A brass mail slot was set into the door below a small plaque. Metro Financial Review, night tips. The street was quiet. A single security camera watched the door from across the street, its lens covered in grime. Daniel approached from the blind side of a delivery van. His knee buckled halfway, a sharp, white stab of pain. He stumbled, the envelope of photos slipping from his hand. It skittered across the wet pavement toward the gutter. He lunged, grabbed it, and pressed himself against the van's cold side panel. He waited, listening. No shouts, no footsteps. Gritting his teeth, he forced himself upright. He shuffled the final steps to the door, slid the envelope and the USB drive through the slot. He dropped the Metro Transit pin on the doorstep, making sure it landed face up. Then he turned and walked away, not looking back, his gait a stiff, controlled limp. 2 blocks over, his backup device, an old prepaid burner phone he kept in his van for emergencies, vibrated in his pocket. A text from another unknown number. Node 07 integrity check failed. Initiate retrieval protocol. It wasn't for him, it was system chatter, bleeding onto a frequency his cheap phone could pick up. The tech cell had pinged the node. They'd found it unresponsive to a specific command, perhaps the one that would have triggered the data dump for the upcoming operation. They knew something was wrong. They were coming to collect their hardware. The race was now public. The review had the evidence. Silo's field team was moving to erase it. Daniel changed his route, doubling back through a series of connected alleys. He entered a crowded, brightly lit convenience store, bought a bottle of water and a protein bar with cash, making eye contact with the clerk. The time on the receipt was 10:47 p.m. An alibi, thin but real. He dumped the burner phone, its battery removed, into a storm drain. The grey sweatshirt went into a different dumpster. He kept moving, a phantom in the city's circulatory system, until he reached his van, still parked in a paid lot a mile from the tower. It hadn't been towed. He drove to a self-storage unit he rented on the city's industrial fringe, a place for overflow tools and client archives. Inside, surrounded by silent boxes, he finally stopped. He powered on a small radio, tuning it to the local news station. He monitored the police scanner on his tablet. For now, there was only the usual nocturnal murmur of the city. No explosions, no headlines. He sat on an upturned crate, his knee screaming. The loop was sealed. He had taken a live wire from a hidden circuit and spliced it into a public alarm. The city's own corrosive chemistry, greed, ambition, institutional rivalry, would take it from here. He had redirected the pressure. The machine was awake now, aware of the disturbance. 72 hours later, Daniel sat at his kitchen table, the morning sun cutting a sharp rectangle across the scarred wood. His right knee was wrapped in a compression sleeve, the shoulder scrape bandaged neatly beneath his shirt. A small analog radio on the counter played the local news station at low volume, a background murmur of traffic and weather. His laptop was closed. He was waiting. The signal came at 7:18 a.m. The announcer's tone shifted from traffic updates to a flatter, more deliberate register. We have a developing story in the financial district this morning. Authorities have confirmed a suspected cybersecurity incident at the Ascension Tower earlier this week. Sources indicate an unauthorized electronic device was discovered within the building's infrastructure. The discovery has prompted an internal investigation and a temporary, precautionary evacuation of several floors. Federal agencies have been notified. Daniel opened his eyes. He reached for a pen and wrote in the margin of a hospital ductwork schematic, *11/7-0718-signal confirmed. He felt no relief, only the validation of a diagnostic test. The redirect had reached the system. By noon, the second, more substantive signal arrived. He read it on his phone. The Metro Financial Review had published its story. The headline was blunt. Covert surveillance node found in elite tower, links to security contract scrutinized. The article contained two of his photos, the node's serial plate, the SIM array, slightly blurred but technically clear. It quoted excerpts from the memo and raised sharp questions about the building's security vendor and its ties to a private equity firm already under regulatory scrutiny. The comment section was a battlefield of speculation and denial. The institutional machinery began its slow, grinding collision. By mid-afternoon, the district attorney's office announced a preliminary inquiry into potential breaches of privacy and corporate security. The mayor's office issued a terse statement about the paramount importance of integrity in our financial infrastructure. The owners of Ascension Tower suspended their contract with the security firm and announced a full, independent audit of all building systems. The covert node was now a documented anomaly in multiple official proceedings. The personal consequence arrived at 4:05 p.m. His office manager, Janine, called. Her voice was strained. Daniel, the Ascension Tower management has formally requested you be removed from their approved vendor list. All our active and pending contracts there are suspended pending review. They cited contractual discretion. No specific reason given. "I understand," Daniel said, his voice neutral. "Was there an issue on site last week?" "No issue they can formally state. Thanks, Janine." He hung up. Within the hour, a voicemail arrived from the building's head of security, his tone carefully polite, requesting a routine follow-up conversation at Daniel's earliest convenience. A corresponding email copying the legal department appeared in his inbox. He ignored the call. He removed the SIM card from his phone, set it on the concrete floor of his workshop, and crushed it. That evening, as he reviewed pressure calculations for the hospital job, his laptop chimed softly. A new email. The sender address was a random string at a disposable mail service. The subject line was blank. The body contained a single, unadorned line. Interference logged. Operational continuity maintained. He deleted the email, wiped the temporary browser cache, and powered off his home router. He packed a small bag and spent the night at a budget motel 15 miles away, paying in cash. The threat was not erased. It was acknowledging him. A ghost pressure in the wires. The first institutional domino fell 48 hours later. A brief item in the business section reported the resignation of the senior vice president of the security contractor. The statement cited a desire to pursue other opportunities. No further detail was given. The following day, a separate and more substantial development. The Securities and Exchange Commission announced it was upgrading its existing inquiry into the linked private equity firm to a formal investigation, citing new evidence related to corporate governance and disclosure. The financial press made the connection to the Ascension Tower incident explicit. There were no dramatic arrests, no televised raids, just the slow procedural unraveling of deniability, the administrative cost of a secret becoming a documented fact. Daniel's assessment was cold and precise. Node 07 was burned. That specific cell of the operation was terminated. The wider silo network, its architecture and sponsors, remained intact, forced to recalculate and retreat. He had forced a reset, introducing uncertainty into the system. On a cool, clear Thursday morning, he drove to a hardware store in a different borough. He bought a new set of drill bits and a tube of epoxy. In the parking lot, he took his Ascension Tower access badge from his wallet. The laminated photo stared back, a man who hadn't yet seen the green pulse in the dark. He bent the plastic until it snapped along the seam and dropped the two halves into a municipal trash bin. Back in his home workshop, he opened his master job ledger. He drew a single, neat line through the entry for the Ascension Tower calibration. On the fresh line below, he wrote, "St. Vincent's Hospital, Main Ductwork Survey, November 10th. The pressure shifted inside the system, and the machine settled into a quieter hum. He went back to work. The city did not thank him.